Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I'll be going through the Module 2 2024 Communication Studies essay, and it featured Guyanese Creole and also Standard English. So I'll be talking about why that might be, giving you points for this essay, and of course, as always, the notes for this video are in the description box below, along with the sample essays, I might say. Oh, and I've got a bonus for you guys as well. So I've taken the time out to create an exam prep package for the 2025 exams. This package contains a 4-hour video recording of past marathons where we go through common student mistakes, and to add a little bonus, we also have the yearly mock exam with never seen before questions, of course, for paper 2. So if that's something you want to try out, then by all means, because if you do that mock exam, of course, you'll be getting feedback about your essay writing and your prospects for the examination coming up from either a tutor that works with us or from myself. Okay, so just off the bat, just looking at the extract itself, says my parents were looking out for me to help them with many things, but I concentrated on 2 major projects which were necessary. These projects took up all my salary for my first 3 years on the job. During this time, I concentrated only on what my parents wanted, and had no thoughts about what I wanted for myself for the future. Richie and me, so right here, me and Richie, me and your ma think you should get married now and settle down. I've picked up a grammatical feature right here, and this is where the object pronoun is put in the place of the subject pronoun. So the object pronoun here is me, right? And instead of me, the standard English alternative would have been I, and of course in the other order. So your mom and I, or your ma and I, would have been the standard English alternative, but instead you have me and your ma. But I think I'm just going to skip through because I didn't find a lot to talk about from this extract, if I'm being honest. But the next thing I found was another grammatical feature, zero copula, and that was where in the dialogue where they said, but Richie or Rishi, what wrong with she? Here, zero copula just means that the auxiliary verb or an auxiliary verb is missing. In this case, the auxiliary verb is. So the standard English alternative for this sentence would be, but Rishi, what is wrong with her? Here you'll see that the subject pronoun is in the position of the object pronoun. So an object pronoun, her, should have been there instead of she. But the main focus here is zero copula, where the auxiliary verb is missing. The next grammatical feature I found was adjective reduplication, and it's right here where they say she young and pretty. Pretty here, pretty puts emphasis on the fact that this woman that Rishi's parents had set him up with is beautiful. So you'll see that a lot in Creole grammar, where you'll have adjectives being duplicated, hence why it's called adjective reduplication. The next thing I want to point out is a non-verbal communicative behavior. I found vocalics when they said I answered boldly. Boldly referring to the tone or quality of Rishi's voice in this case, and how he responded to his parents. I also found kinesics, and that's where they said, or the author says, they stared at me without answering, right? Here, stared is telling how you're using your body to communicate a message, right? Staring in this case could indicate shock, like his parents were rather shocked at how he replied to them. And it can also, in this case, I think it's a little hint at disappointment, of how they were feeling disappointed about the fact that he didn't like the girl, after not only did they go through a lot, them go out of them way to do this, but Also, they were having high expectations that this would actually work out and Rishi would actually, decide to settle down. But yeah, he didn't. I found at the end as well that there was a lot to talk about in terms of the non-communicative behaviors, because even after that, he in the next line he said, I waited for their reaction but they were quiet. Again, that could be, it depends on how you structure your argument, that could be both kinesics or vocalics. The silence, them not saying anything, is vocalics, because that's communicating that I'm not saying anything, I don't want to say anything, maybe because I'm disappointed, maybe because I'm just utterly shocked. But waiting for their reaction, if you describe that as them standing waiting and saying nothing, then perhaps you could argue that that's also kinesics, because again, body language, if I'm not moving, I'm just standing like a log, then that's my body communicating a message to you. I hope that makes sense. I believe I also left something out. Another hint of vocalics where in a hoarse voice, my mother questioned in a hoarse voice, horse, not horse, hoarse voice. Um, the hoarse voice here, usually when someone's voice is hoarse, you think of them as being sick, maybe coming down with a cold or something like that. But in this case, being hoarse, just I think, and I'm going to pat myself on the shoulder for this one. I think it's communicating that the mom's voice cracked. It either cracked because of utter shock or disappointment, like she wanted to cry. So that's what I think, and I think it's an okay point. Not okay. I'm going to double pat myself on the shoulder for that one. Christ. But yeah, those are what I found for grammatical features and non-communicative behaviors. So with that, I'm going to go into the introduction. And in the introduction, I like to tell you guys it's three parts. Your hook, your leading statement, and of course your thesis statement. And your thesis statement just tells us what your argument is or what the essay is about, right? The extract adapted from K.S. Parsam's Love Ain't for Some relates a conversation between a bachelor, Rishi, and his parents. That's my hook. My leading statements now are fundamentally what's going to give context and tell what the extract is about just a little bit, right? I usually make this 1 to 2 sentences because I don't want to go overboard, because remember, you have a word count of 500 words. So while his parents are keen on having him take a wife, Rishi's not. The extract portrays this as a low priority rite of passage for Rishi. Moreover, the idea of an arranged marriage makes it worse. Then my thesis statement is going to tell you what I'll talk about in the essay itself. And I've taken a different approach this time to outlining that, because of course I like to give you guys variety. So this essay explores 1, the dialectal varieties used, 2 non-verbal communicative behaviors showing his parents' reaction to his defiance, and 3, a grammatical feature of Caribbean Creole evident in the conversation. And that's how I wrapped up my introduction. So as you can see, I've highlighted in yellow my hook. The blue part is the thesis, telling you what the essay will have or what I'll talk about. And what I've highlighted in orange here is the leading statement, right? Or my leading statements. I always say this. But essentially, that's my introduction. My first body paragraph is going to answer the first question, which is asking us to talk about the language varieties used and the possible reasons for that. Whenever you're doing your body paragraphs, I highly recommend using the P format. That is where you state a point, and that's usually your topic sentence, and that's where you tell us what you're talking about. State evidence and provide evidence from the extract, then explain. Explain justifies your reasoning or provides support for your argument. So I start this off by saying, firstly, the extract uses both Standard English and the Guyanese Creole as dialectal varieties. You now have to ask nobody what this paragraph is about. It's about the dialectal varieties, which are Standard English and Guyanese Creole. I kind of extended my point a bit because I decided to talk about why they were used together. So I needed to state everything just off the bat. So I said primarily the narration uses Standard English, and this relays the events of the story in a coherent manner, making the series of events easy to follow and providing a clear separation between narration and dialogue. However, throughout the piece, dialogue is exclusively delivered using Guyanese Creole, right? No, I'm going to provide evidence from the extract, and this is where I said Richie uses Creole closer to the acrolect, whereas his parents' speech lies towards the mesolect or basilect. The use of the acrolect is evident in lines such as, I am not ready to get married yet. Also in the line, already make arrangements. No, I really needed to highlight that line, already make arrangements, because Richie here, you can see that it's still, he sounds a lot close to Standard English. However, it still maintains some aspects of Creole grammar. For example, this is where I am going to now explain, or this is the E part of, or the last E in P. So this is understood because make is intended to be the past tense form made. So his parents had already made arrangements for a date with a woman. This difference in speech patterns, along with I decided to go back and change that as a part of my evidence. Anyways, now, this difference, or this is a justification, this difference in speech pattern, along with the language continuum between Rishi and his parents, may be attributable to a separation in sophistication between the two. Now, for my second body paragraph, I'll go on to speak about nonverbal communicative behaviors. So again, start with your point, and that's where I start topic sentence. So based on the story, it was clear that Rishi was not comfortable with the arrangement. So that is my linking statement. It provides connection between the paragraph before and the paragraph that I'm about to start. So thus, when he made it clear he would not date the woman his parents, disappointment was shown. Two nonverbal behaviors that made this evident were kinesics and vocalics. So now you know that I'll be speaking about kinesics and vocalics in this paragraph. Now I'm providing evidence. After they neared the end of their conversation, Rishi's parents were silent. The extract describes this as they stared at me without answering, but they were quiet. Then I'm explaining. This silence shows how the parents used a lack of vocal expression to communicate their disappointment. So I'm saying them not talk, so it obviously them disappointed. This coupled with them staring, so this is my evidence for kinesics, explain, further conveys that they were saddened by the outcome. So again, I kind of intertwined evidence with explanation for both, and that's just for me to avoid repeating myself. That's why I made that choice. Now, for the third paragraph, where I'll speak about grammatical features, I chose to speak about zero copula, despite me finding 3. So along with this, that's a transitional phrase, and then in the conversation, the use of zero copula is evident. Now you know that in this paragraph, I'll be speaking about zero copula as my grammatical feature. In the line, what wrong with she, the auxiliary verb is omitted from the sentence. So instead of actually giving a definition for zero copula, I just stated what it is. Like, I literally just showed you, right? I showed you, I didn't tell you, if that makes sense. So this contrasts with the standard English alternative, what is wrong with her? In this moment, Rishi's mother questions him to figure out why he doesn't like the woman. This solidifies the point that there exists a difference in position of Rishi's parents' speech on the continuum. Whereas his parents employs zero copula, there were no instances of this feature in Rishi's speech. So again, I'm trying to link all my arguments back to one central point, right? So ensuring that my points throughout my entire essay is cohesive or are cohesive. And then the conclusion, I'll say this, if I read your conclusion and have no idea what you spoke about in your essay above, then you have not developed an effective conclusion. So in summation, the extract effectively highlights the tension between tradition and personal choice through its use of language varieties and nonverbal cues. A lot of you would end your conclusion right there, and that's the problem. That's not a conclusion, right? So a proper conclusion will now let me know, or let your reader know, that you have spoken about Guyanese Creole and Standard English as your dialectal varieties. I have spoken about kinesics and vocalics as my nonverbal communicative behaviors, and I've also spoken about oh my god, my memory can't be that short. Zero copula. I've also spoken about zero copula as my grammatical feature. You see, if you don't say all of that in your conclusion, just your conclusion ain't developed, and you're most likely going to lose points for expression. The last sentence in my conclusion is all of these features work together to reflect the gap in views between generations and to support the story's central theme. Now I have come full circle, because like here, I started in summation and gave a little wrap up, and then at the end I basically restated what I said at the start but in different words. So again, full circle, and that wraps up the module 2 essay. Parasrams. Why 6 year do this to me?